Me?
Yes, I see my people here. Shubham. Shubham is my people. So he's here.
Okay, good morning, everybody.
Sorry. Marco is also Marco's here. GV is here. Waris is here. Who else is in the live chat? Tell us, say hi so I could read your name. GV, Marco. Hi, Marco. Is Marco an admin here? I think I should make Marco an admin here as well. Shubham is already an admin.
All right, I'm just gonna tweet this, and then we're
gonna guys, tweet the show so more people join in. We're gonna answer your questions. Hold on, I need to switch to secular jihadists so I could make Marco an admin. Oh, I see Kafir at Facebook. So here, look, we have Facebook live chat and we have YouTube live chat. I'll highlight your comments. Oh, really? You think so, Mark? Oh, that's nice. I have to look at that again. I wasn't paying attention. Shubham is here.
I tweeted it.
All right. Oh, you did? Okay, I'll retweet you. Hold on. I also need to make Shubham. Wait, I'll first retweet you, and then I'll go make Shubham. No, Marco, the Shubham is already admin. Hold on. There we go. All right. Tell people that do your intro.
One second. I'm gonna tag you in it.
Tag me. I already see it. I already retweeted it.
On Facebook.
Oh, you mean Facebook? Okay. I'm retweeting you on my personal account, on Secular Jihadist account, and on Atheist Republic account. I have access to many accounts. All right, let's see who else is in the live chat.
Okay.
P is here. I see P. No, we're not on Twitch. Right. Secular Jihadist is not on Twitch.
What's Twitch? Okay. Is that a thing?
Jesus Christ, Ali. Are you serious?
Yeah, no, I don't know what Twitch is. Is Twitch like a... I'll just be quiet.
Okay. Wait, I'm not gonna let you embarrass yourself. I'm just gonna read the live chat. Darko is here. Mariko is here. Anyways, intro.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. Well, this is our end of month episode. It's the end of July. It's almost the end of July. And so we're here, and this is a time when you get a chance to ask us anything. By anything, I mean anything and everything. Whatever it is, we talk, what we talk about here. We talk about religion, atheism, agnosticism, secularism, all of that good stuff. But also, if you have other stuff, you want to talk about your favorite food, your favorite music, relationship problems that you're having. Armin and I are very, very, very good at relationship advice. So feel free to ask us. Armin especially is extremely good. He's great. Armin, very good. Well, Armin, I'm here with Armin, by the way. I forgot to introduce you. Yeah, it's very early in the morning here. We're separated by 12 hours of time zone.
Early in the morning? Isn't it like 8:30 where you are?
Yeah, but I don't get up for Fajr anymore. I stopped that a long time ago. Armin gets up at the crack of dawn to pray. I don't. Be best, everybody. # be best. So, anyway, welcome.
Oh, we have somebody from Kiev. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this is great. So, this is it. This is your chance to ask questions. But Armin, how have you been?
I'm okay. How are you? Are we answering relationship advice? Because I'm really, I wasn't even joking when I was nodding. I am really good at that. I'm the best at that. But the problem is that most people would be offended with my religion
Yeah, you think?
Yes. I mean, what else is new? So it doesn't matter. I also made Soha. I made her an admin on Secular Jihadists. I hope you don't mind. She's also. Oh, P is also telling everybody to like and sub. Thank you, P.
Yeah, thank you. And so
guys, like and subscribe.
I have a couple of quick things that I wanted to tell you guys. First of all, both Armin and I also have our own. We have our own separate shows and our own separate podcasts. Armin's is Atheist Republic, as you all know. It's pretty established. He also has a lot of really, really interesting guests. You've interviewed everyone from jihadists to neo-Nazis, so sometimes it gets really interesting.
Why did you say that? We do these live streams so that we could grow on YouTube. And when you use that N-word, then YouTube like, oops, sorry, no, you don't get to grow here. You can't say that N-word. Say neo evil people from World War II. Say something like that. You can't
Oh.
say that. We get
Ali did.
punished.
And it's live, so this is it. But anyway, so he interviews all of those people. And so it's a really great channel. It's really fun to watch. And recently you had a really good interview with Coleman Hughes, actually.
Yes.
So it was on.
It wasn't just a good interview. It was the best interview Coleman has ever had, and it's not getting the attention it deserves. Coleman, like, go watch every single interview Coleman has had with anybody, okay? And then come watch my interview with him. You get more out of that interview than any other interview Coleman has ever done. And I'm not even joking right now. That's true.
Actually.
Yes.
It is. It's a really good interview. So you're gonna
just
really
go search
so
Atheist Republic Coleman Hughes. Search for that, and it will show up.
Right. And then
also, Ali has really, really good guests because he had me on his show.
I did. So
that was his best episode.
Yeah. I have a show now called Professional Novice. It's called Professional Novice with Ali Rizvi. So on that, the topics are a little different than here. You know, we talk about pretty much, I usually get people who are sort of secular type people on, but we talk about other things. So I had Armin on to talk about working out and staying in shape and diet and all that, which, you know, he's obviously, if you've seen any of his like thirsty photos, that's what they call, right? I learned that term recently, the thirsty thing. I don't know what it meant.
I don't think you're using it right, but go on.
Am I? Oh, okay. But those, so, you know, the shirtless photos where you're all muscular and showing you look really good.
Okay.
You do. So I guess.
All right, moving on.
Okay. So we've had we talked to a pediatrician about death and dying. She was also here, Simi Rahman, on Secular Jihadists. We had Mookie Spitz, who's a strategist who actually was called by Andrew Yang to advise him, and then later also kind of let go by Andrew Yang. So he talks about why that happened, and he talks about the 2020 election, gives a really, really interesting sort of view of it from a strategy point of view that you may not have heard before. We had Harris Sultan on to talk about online activism, Mariam Namazi. We've had, so quite a few really interesting guests on Professional Novice as well. So do check those out and do subscribe to them. They're all on iTunes and all the other podcast platforms.
I haven't had you had me on your show. I haven't had you on Atheist Republic yet.
I haven't come on. We should do that.
What topic should I bring you for?
I don't know. Whatever you want. We've talked about everything. We've talked to each other for hours and hours and hours on this show.
See, that's the problem. The good thing about your channel is that you talk about non-political, non-religious related things, right?
Yeah.
So when you had me on your channel, we had something to talk about that we never explored on Secular Jihadists, right? But I want to bring you on Atheist Republic, and almost every topic that I could talk to you about on Atheist Republic, we've already talked about it on Secular Jihadists. So I have to think about what is it that I haven't talked to you about that I could bring you on as a guest on Atheist Republic.
Yeah, think of something. Anything you want to talk to me about. Put me on the spot. Like, give me a challenge. Corner me. It'll be fun.
Well, I do that every day, and I'll win every single time. So
I don't feel that. You're not as good at it as you think you are.
Yeah,
so
I'm kidding.
So I would ask you that before we get to the questions, is something recently that happened that's very relevant to what we do. Okay. And this happened in Pakistan. So as you know, that we've had several guests on who've talked about blasphemy in Pakistan. We had Rafia Askewi. This is the woman who was married off to her cousin. Then her cousin, she had a child, and then the child, the child was essentially taken away from her because she was accused of blasphemy, and then she had to come to the U.S. and the child was kept away from her for about 8 years, and eventually she fought in court to try and get her back, and now she did. So she told that entire story, which really sums up how toxic the blasphemy law is in Pakistan. We also had Shant Asir. Shant Asir is the son of the governor of the largest province in Punjab, who was shot by his own bodyguard for showing solidarity with Asia Bibi. Asia Bibi was the Christian woman who was accused of blasphemy and in jail. So he visited her in jail, and he spoke out against the blasphemy law. He showed solidarity, and the bodyguard shot her for showing solidarity with somebody accused of blasphemy. And then the bodyguard was celebrated his funeral, like, millions and millions of people came to the murderer's funeral. So blasphemy is something like killing people for blasphemy is very accepted there. So recently there was another episode in Pakistan, just the last couple of days, where there is a man in a courtroom. He belongs belongs to the Ahmadi Muslim sect. The Ahmadi Muslim sect they're considered apostates by a lot of the mainstream Muslims, especially in Pakistan. They're discriminated against by the state itself of Pakistan. And so he was in court for something. He was accused of blasphemy. And this one guy just shot him in the courtroom, shot him dead. And there's a video of him just slouched over his chair, dead. And the guy is just going on about it. He's like, well, if you don't want me to disrespect the court, ask him not to disrespect our prophet. And just killed him. And he's being celebrated. He's being supported. People are calling him a hero. Not the man who was killed, but the man who murdered him. They're calling him a hero. There are lawyers just scrambling over each other to try and represent him and defend him, the murderer, because he protected the Prophet Muhammad's honor. And they're saying that they're going to work pro bono without fees. So it's actually it's a horrendous situation. And the person that he murdered was obviously an Ahmadi person. So I wanted to know if you had anything to say about that before we went, because this is big news. It's very relevant to us. It's very, very tragic. It's terrible. Yeah. And
maybe we could get some of those lawyers that are pro bono wanting to defend this murderer and to bring them on the show and see what they have to say. If there's a chance, we could reach out to any of them.
Get one of the murderers?
No, the lawyers of the murderer. Or
someone who defends him. Yeah, that would be interesting. I can find out to see what they're doing. It'd be
it's fine to defend murderers. I mean, as a lawyer, that's your job. But the fact that these people want to do it pro bono because they believe in it, that's kind of like that's like disgusting. But anyways, let's get to the questions, okay, guys? Send us more questions. Where is it saying is Sufism such as what is this? What can you read this?
Barelvis. So
in Pakistan worse than Salafis?
Yeah, so the Barelvis are this sort of Sunni group. It's a major sect in Pakistan and India, right? And apparently, like most people there are Barelvis, the Sunni thing.
Sufism as a whole is extremely dangerous. I don't know if people want me to get into why I think that.
Yeah, so we can talk about that. I think that they're very different. So what Barelvis are is it's a sort of a syncretic sect of religion where these people, they have a combination of the influences of Islam that came to the Indian subcontinent. So the Indian subcontinent has a tradition of Sufism and mysticism, and also has a tradition of Arab conquest and the more traditional Sunni Islam. So this is more of it's a sort of a mixture of both. So there are many Sunni people who also have a lot of respect for the Sufi saints. So sometimes...
shorter answers?
Huh?
Shorter answers.
No, I'm explaining what the Barelvis are for the people who don't know.
Okay.
So that's my understanding of it. I don't know that much about the details of it, but yeah, there is some overlap. But the question is a Sufism such as Barelvis in Pakistan worse than Salafis? Yeah, the technically, if you look at it from I guess from an overall view, the Salafis are worse because Salafis are more, they're more fundamentalist. They're like the ones that you see in Saudi Arabia. They're the ones who believe in.
I think as a total, if you want to compare it as total damage rather than per capita of the Muslims who believe in it, I don't know about these Barelvis, but Sufism. If you were comparing Sufism as a whole with Salafis, I would say Sufism has been more damaging.
That's right.
Yes.
Sufism. You say it's wait. Are you saying Sufism has been more damaging?
Yes.
In what way?
Well, I mean, as a historically, the fact that it has been more widespread, and the fact that the Sufi ideology is responsible for ending the golden age of Arabs during the Abbasid areas, like the diversion of the minds of Arabs and Persians away from focusing on rational thinking and focusing on the scientific method, towards more revelation, towards faith, towards religious thinking, against the philosophers, against the scientists, right? I mean, the Arab and the Persian world was almost going through an age of enlightenment. This is what our show is trying to do. Like, it's called the full title of our show is Secular Jihadists for the Muslim Enlightenment, right? The Muslim Enlightenment almost happened. If it wasn't like the age of enlightenment that happened in Western Europe was almost going to happen if it wasn't for people like Ghazali and the other Sufis who stopped it. So the ramifications of that through history as a whole, and the cost associated with that as a whole, I think is much bigger than some jihadis and some more recent fundamentalist radical movements here and there.
So what you're saying is that the Sufis kind of made the mythological aspect of it more palatable in a way, by making it all about peace and love and everything. So it made it.
But they also aggressively went after logic, reason, scientific thinking.
And going
the Ghazali's book specifically was named the problem with the problem with the philosophers. I think that was what it was called. Like he was like not even hiding it. Like he was against rational thinking, against the people that were using logic as a weapon, right?
I know. Yeah, so no, I actually agree with you. I mean, I've always said, and we've both actually said here, that we think that the worst thing about Islam itself is not really the terrorists and the bombs and everything like that. That's just those are just the twigs on the tree. I mean, the actual roots of it are what it shares with all of the other religions, which is essentially an assault on critical thinking, an assault on the scientific method, looking for alternative ways, trying to get to quote unquote the truth, that are not based on objective evidence and that are not based on scientific inquiry. So
we have a celebrity in the live chat, and he's correcting me on the name of the book that I mentioned.
See, this time is great in that sense that even though I'm groggy, we get video vids in the live chat.
Yes, we need to. If we get video vids, come joining us at this time. We need to do more shows at this time.
Yeah, he's saying the incoherence of philosophy. That's
the incoherence. That's the book, the incoherence of philosophy. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Walid. Well, guys, everybody check out Walid's channel. It's the funniest ex-Muslim channel that is out there. Actually, it's the only funny. If you want comedy and mixed with your anti-Islam activism, then check out Video Wid's best channel. Yeah, amazing. Go check it out. But okay, wow.
So here's a question from Ronnie XD.
That's his name. His name is Shubham.
Shubham is saying, I heard that some people destroyed an old Buddha statue in Pakistan after they discovered it in a construction site because it was un-Islamic. And that's not the first time, actually. So Islam generally has this thing against idolatry because they're against polytheism. They're against, making idols of gods, making images of revered figures. So as you know, you cannot make pictures of Muhammad. You cannot make statues of Muhammad, because there is an idea that if you do that, you start venerating these statues and these images, and you move away from God, which is this, unseen sort of entity and superpower. So, so the Buddha statues, remember the Taliban, when they first took over Afghanistan, they also broke down a lot of really ancient old Buddha statues. So, the bringing down of statues is not a new thing, and it's pretty expected that in an Islamic country, people who are especially adherent to Islam and Islamic, theology, and they believe in that, are going to go ahead and break down these statues. If it was a statue of Krishna or anything like that, they would have done it as well. So this is something that's quite classic and expected.
Ooh, this is a very important question. GB saying, which is worse, a theocratic democracy or a secular dictatorship?
Yeah,
like Turkey. So it's theocratic democracy like Pakistan, or a secular dictatorship like Turkey and under Ataturk. So it's really
I want to hear what you say on this first.
I don't think it's fair to come up with example countries, because sometimes if I say, for example, Pakistan right now is worse than Turkey under Ataturk, it might not be. It might be for multiple reasons other than just the fact that one of them was a theocratic democracy and the other one was a secular dictatorship, right? So comparing the examples you're giving might not capture what you're asking, because there's multiple variables. But if you didn't, if everything else was equal, which is not with Pakistan and Turkey and Ataturk, I would always choose democracy over dictatorship. And this, when you say a theocratic democracy, you mean it must be a true democracy. It can't be like a democracy like Iran, right? Because like not like a fake pretend democracy. But if people choose like a true democracy, a true theocratic democracy actually is a self-contradiction, because a theocracy doesn't allow the rule of the people. So I think you can, a theocracy means rule by God, the laws of God rather than the laws of people, not chosen by people. So I think when you mean a religious democracy where people are choosing a religious rule, even though technically that's self-contradiction with the religion, democracy will be a contradiction with the religion. Let's say there are either hypocrites or unaware enough that they choose democracy, but they choose a form of democracy that the officials come up with rules based on religious rules. So let's compare a religious democracy compared to a secular dictatorship. Even though if people are choosing wrong under a democracy, they're choosing to be ruled by religious laws. I don't think there's not much that would justify forcing another way of life on people. And okay, so actually both of these are a contradiction, because a theocratic democracy is a contradiction because you're saying rule by God versus rule by people, and a secular dictatorship is also somewhat contradictory. Okay, because this is where I think like the whole idea of secularism was not something that Ataturk or Reza Shah were doing based on our current understanding of secularism, because our current understanding of secularism is that the government stays out of people's religious belief and practices. But what Ataturk and Reza Shah were doing, they were actively enforcing laws that didn't let people practice their religion, even in, I mean, not always, but in many cases, actively going against people's freedom to practice their religion, right? So secularism, at least when it comes to secularism, the dictatorship will contradict that secularism. But if you're saying they're secular in the sense that they're not, only when it comes to people's religion or lack of religion, the government is staying out of it. But with regards to everything else, the government is being a dictator. Then again, I prefer a democracy always over any form of dictatorship.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that with democracy, the process actually allows for changes in a way that you could potentially ultimately, work towards moving away from theocracy. You have the process and you have the resources available. Not always in a great way, because not all democracies are the same. Not all democracies are great and perfect, and some of them are restrictive. But a secular dictatorship, another problem is through history, we've seen that whenever you have a secular dictatorship, especially in Muslim majority countries, the opposition to it. Sorry, what happened?
No, you're right. It goes back.
The opposition to it, the only organized opposition to it in Muslim majority countries ends up being an Islamist or a political Islamic opposition. So we saw this in Iran. You had the Shah of Iran, secular dictatorship. The revolution came up. Yes, it was multifaceted, with a whole bunch of different groups, but ultimately the Islamic theocratic elements won out. You saw that in Egypt when Mubarak came down, secular dictator. When he was brought down, the first election that they had after that, the Muslim Brotherhood won 60% of the vote, and Mohammed Morsi came into power.
Turkey as well. Look at what's happening to Turkey now.
Exactly. Look at what's happening to Turkey right now. And Turkey was thought of as the one sort of haven, the Muslim majority country that was a parliamentary democracy was considered to be part of Europe, by many people. And now, if you look at it, it's becoming more and more theocratic, and it's getting worse and worse. A very different picture than what it was. So forcing any kind of ideology, even a secular ideology, especially a secular ideology, can actually bring about really bad results. And you're seeing it happen in Syria and Libya as well. The exception would be probably Tunisia, which is a little different, but exceptions happen. It's not the general rule, though.
So actually, you make a very good point, because with religious democracy, what you have the opportunity is to replicate what happened in Western Europe with the Age of Enlightenment, right? So the difference between what Ataturk and Reza Shah did and what happened in Western Europe when they had their Age of Enlightenment is that the age of in Western Europe, it was a bottom-up approach where the opinions of the people changed, and eventually that led into politics and the way that people demanded that they were governed. What Ataturk and Reza Shah were doing, they were looking at Europe and seeing all the progress, and they wanted to force that on people without doing the groundwork of making people want that, right? So doing the groundwork and making people changing people's opinions so that they elect that they choose something like that for themselves is more possible through democracy rather than any authoritarian regime. So,
right.
And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to replicate the Age of Enlightenment in Western Europe, in the Muslim community. So
I have a trivia question for people. No. The only state in the world, the only country in the world ever that has a history of having atheism as a state religion, where there was a state belief and nobody was allowed to practice religion at all, like officially made atheism the state religion. Do you know what that is?
Wait, sorry again?
The only country ever to have atheism, enforced atheism.
Oh, it was the European country. Wait, no. Albania,
you're right. Yeah.
Yes? Yeah!
Yes. So, the guy was Hoxha at something, that I forgot his first name. But Hoxha, this guy in 1967 made Albania officially an atheist state where atheism was forced on everybody, and it was a Muslim majority country. So in history, the only country that's ever had enforced state atheism has been a Muslim majority country. So
I'm so impressed with myself right now. I don't know what to do. Yeah. Okay, read this next.
The next question is from P. That's just the letter P. Two questions actually here. So let's take them one by one. They're both quite different. So the first one is, any comments about the ongoing efforts for the COVID-19 vaccines? Well, I think it's obviously it's great that they're working on COVID-19 vaccines. You cannot reopen anything without some level of risk, without having the safety net of a vaccine. The good thing is that there are multiple companies working on vaccines. They're showing good results. The downside is that vaccines take time to develop. So there's a very lengthy process in which you have to do several trials for any kind of medication, any kind of treatment. The phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, you do these trials and they have to be approved eventually. So they are fast tracking this all over the world. There's the Trump administration has something called Operation Warp Speed, where they're providing a lot of funding to get these vaccines done. Private people are funding it too, like Bill Gates is funding efforts for the COVID-19 vaccine. So hopefully it's going to happen soon. But
let's answer faster, because the questions are growing faster than our answers.
Yeah, but once you do have a vaccine, but this is important, so I just want to make sure we get the details in. But once you do have the vaccine, then after that you have to mass produce it, and you have to make way for distribution to huge masses, hundreds of millions of people at a time. So they're saying that the vaccine, you might have a vaccine by December, maybe, but it's not going to be ready for mass administration until at least maybe the spring of 2021, and that's being optimistic. So
Ali, but going forward, let's try to answer a little bit faster.
Sure.
Okay.
Second question is, what do you think will be the Achilles heel for the woke and cancel mob culture? I think those things are already happening, and we recently had an episode about this. Our last episode was called "Liberal versus Woke," where we talked about
I'm hoping if Trump loses, that will take the wind out of the sail of a lot of these woke movements, because they don't have for these movements to grow. They need a big bag, giant boogeyman to scare people into thinking like you need them. So I'm hoping. I'm not predicting this. I don't know, but I'm hoping if you take the Trump element out of that, Biden is not going to be as scary enough. Like what they're gonna try to do is like tell you like, oh no, Biden is just as bad. Biden is horrible. He's not doing this. He just says something racist. Oh, he's the same as Trump. They're gonna say stuff like that, but it's not gonna work. It's not gonna be as scary as Trump.
Right.
And yeah, so they're gonna lose a lot of steam. Hopefully, what's gonna give them another shot, a lot of like more energy is another shooting, which is definitely going to happen, unfortunately, given the number of times that police comes in contact with Black people in United States. No matter how much you reduce the numbers and how much improvements you make, there's going to be another person recording a cop killing an unarmed Black person, and that is I can't imagine that there are a lot of them are waiting for that because they needed to continue being relevant. So
And I agree with you. I think that, but if you have someone like Biden in power, he would openly denounce it. He'll probably come out and say Black Lives Matter in public, and that will take the wind out of their sail. If you want the woke thing to die down, you have to remove the boogeyman. You really do, and that is Trump, because that legitimizes it. You know how Bin Laden, and originally Osama bin Laden, when he established Al Qaeda, he just wanted to get the Americans out of the Arab Peninsula. He wanted to get them out of Saudi Arabia, the Holy Land. That was the thing. But then he started, when opposition against the U.S. increased, he started talking about the Palestine issue, started talking about the Kashmir issue and all of these other things. And he started getting mainstream people to support his cause. And that's kind of what's happening in a way. I mean, there's no comparing Al Qaeda with woke, sorry, but the whole woke culture is actually getting mainstream people in opposition to Trump. So that's what the problem is. If you want to get rid of woke culture, get rid of Trump.
I think I missed a question about communism above. Maybe it was retracted. But no, it's not retracted. I have to go back up and find it. But let's read Chopin's question here, and then I'll go back up to that comment.
So Chopin's comment is to Ali. It's to me. Being of Indian descent, what does he think about the plea in the Supreme Court to remove socialist and secular from the preamble of the Indian Constitution? So those are two very different things. Socialism is a political ideology. Secularism is not really a political ideology. Secularism is just an overall concept that separates religion from state. And secularism is the tradition of India. So India has a large Hindu population, as you know, but it also has the second largest or the third largest Muslim population in the world. And it has a tradition of everybody being able to live together: Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, atheists, agnostics. Everybody has been able to live in India together. It truly is a sort of a model pluralistic society where everybody gets along, which is an ideal I think everybody should aspire to. So, when these nationalists and the Hindutva sort of Hindu supremacist elements come in and they say that, no, we have to get rid of secularism from it, they're not getting. I think one of the oppositions to it was that Indian citizens, should not be forced to be secular. That's a completely bullshit interpretation of it, because secularism doesn't apply to individuals. Secularism is a system that basically says the state is going to be separate from religion, which means that secularism is the only system that guarantees religious freedom for everybody. Everybody can practice any religion they want to. It's just not involved in the affairs of the state. So that, I think, should stay. Socialists, if they're talking about social safety nets, things like, healthcare for all, education for all, that's a different thing. But I agree that they could potentially reword it. But secularism should definitely stay.
All right, this is.
So
I'm gonna go. Yeah.
Yeah, he's saying, I love you, but I don't agree on your stance on communism. I condemn Stalin and Mao, but the ideology itself is not harmful if it never preaches to kill millions of people, unlike the Nazi that teaches hate.
Okay, can I actually, I think actually the true evil of communism is mostly from the non-violent part of communism than the violent. Technically, Marx also incited, called people to rise up against the bourgeoisie and like to topple. Like he was a revolutionary. He did call out for. He did encourage people to topple the system, right? So it could be argued that it does call out for violence, right? But even if that wasn't there, communism has killed even with Mao and Stalin, and all the millions of people that they killed, which is way more than, I guess we said it. I guess we're gonna say it anyways. The Hitler ever killed. God damn it, I can't. Anyways, but even though they, if we remove that, the number of people communism killed because of hunger and starvation is way more than the number of people communism killed from violence. So the violence of communism, at least in your words, the Stalin of Mao, is more than Hitler. But the number of people who died because of the poverty that communism causes is even outdoes what Stalin and Mao did combined. So yeah, I mean, people are not that interested in people starving to death as much as they are interested in looking at the number of violent death. Violent death sometimes seems more evil to people, which is bizarre to me because starvation is a lot more painful than having somebody shoot you in the head. I think it's, that tragedy of people dying from hunger is dismissed often as like, yeah, whatever, it's not violent, which I never understand. But that's my opinion. I think even if communism was not violent, it's still more dangerous than many other ideas out there.
Yeah.
You agree?
So I think that communism in theory. So I actually like, I know this big, thing against Marxism everywhere, but I think that Marx was a sort of a well-intentioned guy, and I
agree with that.
And I think he was one of the greatest minds, right, in the last century.
Yes, I agree with that.
Like if you have Karl Marx, you have Sigmund Freud, you have Einstein. I mean, some of these people, you don't have to agree with everything that they said, but for their time, what they did was absolutely revolutionary, and there were a lot of good ideas that we got out of it that we still use today, and that are used in these societies as well. You always get something from everything. The only thing is, in history, throughout history, we've seen that it doesn't work. Communism, just the ideology, tends to go against human nature. It gives way too much. It sort of claims to give power, distributed equally, but it doesn't end up that way. It just ends up being very, very authoritarian and horrible.
I studied Marx in college, and before I studied finance and economics, right?
Yeah.
And when I was studying Marx, I was like, man, this guy is a fucking genius. Like the way he thinks about everything, and
genius.
Yeah, and you read it and you don't understand it, and then the teacher explains it to you, and you're like mind blown every time that you understand what he's trying to say, right? And then I was like, this is amazing. This guy was like a greatest mind of his time. And then you go study finance and economics, and then I realized like, okay, but data shows that he was wrong about everything, right? And I think like, then I understood, like based on my education, that was in sociology class, and then in finance and economics, we weren't dealing with people just coming up with ideas, armchair sitting and thinking about things and writing it down. In finance and economics, we were dealing with real numbers and what the data actually shows, right? Yeah, and not only did that show me that he was wrong about almost everything, it also showed me how important it is to realize the difference between theorizing and thinking what works, and then eventually like looking at data and realize like how much more important that is.
Right? That's what it comes to. And I do want to say one thing, like people who are communists, and I do get their point, they have a very different idea of rights. This idea of, that in the capitalist system, you have like individual liberty, free markets, free speech, free expression. Those are your fundamental rights. But they also, communists think of their human rights as, economic opportunity for all, housing for all, education for all. Everybody has a right to healthcare. and they do those things. So it's just two different. It is actually two different views on rights, but the way the communism and actually the way it actually ends up in practice is it just ends up being very, very totalitarian authoritarian, and it just does not work. Time and time again, it just does not work in practice. So what Armin's saying about the theorizing is absolutely correct. Uday is saying, did you guys already talk about the murder right in the courtroom yesterday in Pakistan?
Yeah, we did.
Case? Yes, we did. So he's saying once again they're supporting a murderer like the one who killed Salman Taseer. I want to right now, for those of you who haven't heard our interview with Shan Taseer, Shan Taseer is the son of the eldest son of Salman Taseer, the governor who was killed. So do check that out. He's been on a previous episode. We should probably bring him back to talk about this as well. So I can't pronounce his name. Khan Min Gien is saying, what do you think about people in the West adoring Rumi? Do you think his teaching has value worth consideration? I know Armin's opinion. Let's see what Ali thinks.
Hey, I don't think you know my opinion.
Yeah, I don't either.
Okay, no, I mean, I like poetry, even if it's, I mean, it does, I mean, okay, there's two ways to treat these things. If you want to treat them as, again, I look at Rumi as the same way you look at the Quran or the Bible. It's okay to be, drown yourself in the mysticism and the beauty and the words and the poetry and the imagination, as long as you understand that you're just, you're dealing with fantasy. Rumi is beautiful to read, even if it's horseshit. You can enjoy it. Mysticism as a whole is bullshit. But when I, for example, watch Game of Thrones and I see, people online coming up with the whole theory of how the spells works and who the gods actually are, and they're building a religion behind every single fantasy that it exists. Like, that's interesting. Then I think we could do that with the real world, like the myth. All these mystics and the Sufis and stuff. To me, understanding why they thought the way they did and what they believed in is so much fun, and especially when it comes in a poetic, fun to read format. It's just that it shouldn't be taken seriously as anything that is real. You could take Khayyam as something that's somebody who was dealing with actual real skepticism, and but that's another poet. Anyways, that's my view.
My view is it's the same as yours, actually. I mean, this is a problem. We're agreeing on a lot of these things. Now, I really like Rumi. I know that, and there are a lot of people who are religious who are, I mean, that doesn't mean anything. Poetry is different. Poetry is not it's one of those things you can interpret in a certain way. There's a tremendous amount of wisdom in the way that Rumi thought about things. Lot of his poetry, it was good. There's a lot of he wasn't overtly, in a lot of his poetry, he wasn't overtly religious or anything like that either. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Francis Collins. Francis Collins, the head of the NIH, who is he's a believing Christian, but he's also one of the most brilliant physicians who is alive today. He was actually Christopher Hitchens' personal doctor in his last few days, even though he's sort of like a more sort of a believing Christian, and Hitchens was the opposite. So it depends on the level that you're connecting with these people on. Nusantara Rising is saying, thoughts on the mass reconversion of Amazigh to Catholicism, Berber Christianity, Berber traditional faith as a rejection of Arab colonialism. So I'm assuming this has to do with the Berber in Morocco, or in some of the, I think there's a bunch of Northern African countries. I don't know that much about it, so I don't know about this reconversion thing either. As a rejection of Arab colonialism. A lot of times when people want to, push back against a certain kind of colonialism, they tend to adopt another one. You see this with, I can speak for the Islamic world. What happens is a lot of them are very against Western imperialism and Western colonialism. So they're like, no, we're going to go back to Islam. You see this in Pakistan all the time. They don't realize that Islam was also the product of a colonial. It was imperialism. It was the Arab invasion and conquest of the Indian subcontinent, and the Islamic Empire actually stretched from Spain all the way to East Asia. So that was also a form of imperialism. So you're just trading one form of imperialism for another. And
I mean, we saw what happened with Iran. For example, they tried to use the same tactic as the way they adopted Shia Islam as a way to fight against Arab colonialism, right? So Shia Islam, which only came in power first in Egypt when Iran was still Sunni, but many years later, because of the Safavid dynasty and because of trying to be independent and unique from the Arabs, Shia Islam grew in Iran, and it was used. And actually, Shia Islam was used multiple times by Iranians to separate themselves from the Arabs, but it was done most successfully with the Safavid dynasty. So if you think that was a motive, I mean, if you consider that as a weapon against Arab colonialism, it turned into its own colonial, the Persian Empire, and then eventually what we have today, and a government, a Shia empire building government. So it could backfire and could become even more ugly if you don't use ugly ideas to fight against other ugly ideas. The best way to do that is true. I mean, that's why what we're doing here is again a secular jihadist for Muslim enlightenment, because we think that those are the ideas that you that give you the best bang for your buck, and with very limited negative side effects to fight back against it. Yeah. But here, let's go to this one.
All right, Wars. Yeah, I think this is gonna be more yours, because I actually haven't read the book. So Al-Ghazali's book was called, this is from Waris Rafiq. He's saying Al-Ghazali's book was called The Incoherence of the Philosophers. It was one of the best critiques of Aristotelian philosophy ever written.
Well, I mean, that's just a claim. No, I don't. I mean, if you read Ghazali, he's constantly against logic and reason and focusing on, direct connection to God. So I don't know where's this coming from, but I guess that's your opinion, and you're wrong.
Okay, so from Ishas Tagagi, God, you guys come up with some amazing usernames here. What do you think? What do you think is the problem with non-totalitarian religions such as Buddhism, Jainism, Hinduism, or other Eastern philosophies? I guess, okay, other Eastern philosophies. Yeah.
They're all garbage. They all need to die.
Well, he's saying, what do you think is the problem with them?
Oh, what do you think? It's based on mixed claims without evidence.
That's it.
That's all you need to know.
That's it. That's basically, there's, one of the best quotes you're ever going to hear, and I don't know if Voltaire actually said this or not, was that, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. And this is the problem. The problem is the process. Okay, so it's not about what you believe in the end and whether those beliefs are harmless. Like if someone tells you you shouldn't kill bugs, don't kill bugs, like Jainism, you shouldn't kill bugs because this is something that God doesn't want you to do, or this superpower out there, it's very bad, and this is what we've been given, these are the instructions, and you have no evidence that you got those instructions, then ultimately whatever instructions you get from this God or this venture, you're going to be susceptible to that, right? The problem is the process. The process is that you should look for evidence and reason for why you should do or should not do certain things, and all of these philosophies supersede that. So, even if you have a harmless belief, right, but you are getting it, you're believing in that harmless belief because someone told you that, someone with authority told you to do it, then you are not going to develop your skills of critical thinking. You're not going to develop your skills of scientific inquiry. And eventually what's going to happen is when a demagogue does come in and start slowly, step by step, leading you towards committing those atrocities, like you see in The Handmaid's Tale, it always starts very small. Starts very harmless. Seems like, well, what's wrong with this? And then it snowballs and the dominoes start falling. And when you move towards that, you're not going to be equipped with the processes of critical thinking to be able to push back. And you're going to fall for it. And this is what we saw in, everywhere. Nazi Germany with millions of people falling for the demagoguery.
Keep saying that word so that we completely.
Oh,
tank.
Okay, yeah.
I was going
I
to
did
say
not
something
see
very
that.
profound, but your answer was so long that I completely forgot what I was going to say.
It was also correct. It was very profound.
Yes, it was very correct.
Anyway, go ahead. And I think you agree with me. So
yeah, I completely agree with you. I also want to say that when I say, this is not what I was going to say, but I want to make it clear that when I say they all need to die, I'm not talking about the people. Please don't come after me like somebody's going to say like, actually nobody says that unless I say that about Islam. When I say Christianity needs to die, nobody thinks I'm saying that Christians need to die. But whenever I say, nobody thinks that. But for some reason, when I say Islam needs to die, then there's a whole bunch of people that come after me like Armin wants to kill Muslims. Why is it? Why is it that people don't get confused when I say Christianity needs to die? Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I think I was gonna say something about these religions. I'm gonna write it down next time. Okay.
Write it down next time. Yeah. Soraya is saying, why don't you guys ever talk on Ambedkar? Hindus are misrepresenting him as Hindu, even though he left Hinduism and rewrote Buddhism in his own words with better research. Have you guys read him? So, we recently had Jaron Jove, who's this sort of like Hindu atheist guy who was also a big fan of the BJP and the Modi government in India. And pro sort of Hindu nationalism, and he thought that protesting against the Citizenship Amendment Act is anti-Hindu bigotry. So he had a completely different idea of what bigotry is compared to us. And he claimed, and we got crap for that. We got criticized for this, Armin, actually quite by a lot of people who listened to that. He claimed that the Hindutva movement is based on the ideas of Ambedkar, B.R. Ambedkar, right? Whereas, and I had said that, they're based on Savarkar. Savarkar was a guy who said, well, Hitler was actually okay. That kind of guy. And I was right. We were right. It is based on Savarkar, but we didn't really push back on him enough because I don't think we knew about it. But so here's the thing. Hindus may be misrepresenting him. Ambedkar was basically, he was this guy. He was, I think he was Buddhist. And he he campaigned against the untouchables, the lowest caste. Actually, they're not even part of the whole caste system, and they're so low. They were badly discriminated against in India. So he did that. So I actually don't know too much about it. Otherwise, I would have pushed back on Jaron as well. No, I haven't. So the question is, have you guys read him? No, I haven't really read him or about him in detail. I just know who he is and some of the basics. But I also know that, whatever he believed, I think that he probably would be absolutely incensed and completely outraged by this whole Hindutva nationalist, sort of this Hindutva, almost a jihadist kind of movement that is happening in India right now, this sort of fetish for Hindu nationalism. So I think he'd have a huge problem with it today.
Okay, next question.
Waris is asking, in Pakistan, the Ahle Hadith, aka the Salafis, are generally more open-minded compared to the Deobandi and Barelvi Sufis, who make up 95% of the Sunnis in the country.
Okay, that was another question. That's
it's actually not even true. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. Like the majority of people in Pakistan, what are the Barelvis? I mean, they're not particularly, like, the Salafis are insane.
They are actually. I don't know. That's ableist of you to say, Ali. People are gonna come at you. Anyways, Barris is asking another question.
He's saying, "What do you think of the impact of television series Ertugrul that has had in the Muslim world, as has become the most popular TV series in the history of many Muslim majority nations?" I haven't watched it. I've read a few headlines about it. I don't know that much about it. I know it's some Turkish show that has I don't know, that venerates and glorifies sort of.
So this is what I think.
Do you know about this?
Yeah, I mean, Turkey as a whole is doing what Iran has been doing for the past 40 years, right? Turkey is okay. So this is so interesting because this is the whole. I think a lot of people in the West should be familiar with. So okay, so like in Iran, when we have is a lot of people look at the past and the glory of the Persian Empire, right? And the problem Iran, for example, has is that, Ali, can you reduce my volume a little bit? The problem that Iran has is that going back, a lot of people want to go back to the glorious days that Iran was an empire. And the problem is that at that time, Iran was not Islamic, right? So this whole obsession with the romanticizing how great the past was is in contradiction with pushing for Islam, right? Because what actually became an empire after Islam was not was the Arab Empire, which dominated over the Persians, right? So Iran, which is now an Islamic theocracy, cannot really push for the glory days of Islam being an empire because it was the time that Arabs ruled over the Persians, right? So there's this constant conflict between the nationalists and the religious people. The religious people are seen by a lot of nationalists, again, this is a simplification of what's happening, as people who are supporting the foreign invaders, that are supporting a foreign culture that was inferior to the Persian culture, right? So this is really difficult to for the Islamic for the religious people to win the hearts and minds of Iranian people. This was always a struggle. Now Iran is trying to tap into the to the people's, even after Iran, Khomeini hated like tapping into that, but they had to use nationalism a little bit during Iran-Iraq war, and now they're tapping into it a lot more by playing. It's very interesting because Iran is realizing that the sense of nationalism is too strong in Iran to not use, and they're now using it. They're using less Islamic names and narratives, and they're bringing out some of the pre-Islamic or non-Islamic heroes of the past and using that in their narrative instead of using all the Shia imams constantly, which is a very interesting switch in the Islamic Republic of Iran's narratives, right? But Turkey, now that Turkey is going Islamic, more and more Islamic, and it wants to bring that sense of nationalism, they don't have the problem that Iran has, because Turkey's glory days was the Ottoman Empire. So if they want to tap into both nationalism and Islamism, it's one of the same. So the Ottoman Empire was both the best time that Turkey had was both an Islamic empire, and it's a time that the nation was the strongest that it has ever been. So they could use the nationalist narrative and the Islamic narrative together, and this is what you're describing is part of what they're doing. So.
Yeah, there's a question right above this one, Armin, from Manasi Vedia 854. What did you think of Indian matchmaking? So I have to say, I just finished the show yesterday, and I love it. I love it not because I support a lot of stuff that happens. Armin, do you know about the show?
No.
It's about arranged marriage. So it's on Netflix. What they've done is they've taken there's this woman who's a matchmaker from Mumbai, and she essentially sets up people. It's like a real life, what they used to do before Tinder and everything like that. And it just looks into the arranged marriage situation, how families get together, how the parents set each other up. A long time ago, before I got married, like when I was in my 20s, I did a couple of things in that route where I met people through the family for arranged situations. A lot of it was because of, and it was great because what happened is your parents would set it up. The parents would meet. They'd make sure everybody's interested. So you didn't really have to ask the girl out. And then you'd go out a few times, you'd meet, you'd talk, you'd see if it worked out. And if it didn't work out, you didn't have to dump them. You just told your parents, and then the parents would talk about it, and your parents would dump them for you. So you just enjoyed the middle part, and you didn't have to do the difficult part of asking the person out and then dumping them or whatever it was. So it was just, it was funny. But there's a lot of crap that came out about the culture, about, people, this fetish for fair skin and things like that people are very upset about, but they shouldn't be, because that is a reality of it. Everything that you see in that is actually quite realistic. Narn Ann is asking, I'm late. Did anyone mention calling Pakistan a theocratic democracy is incorrect, as it has resulted in military dictatorship several times? That's a very good point. So one of the problems with Pakistan is that anytime there has been a democratic process, you've never really had, I think the very first time you had a peaceful transition of power, a civilian government to another civilian government, was when the Pakistan People's Party transferred to the Nawaz Sharif, his party, the PML, and then that was fairly recent, just several years ago. Otherwise, you had a democratic system, democratically elected government. The president has a power to dissolve the entire government, and often the military dictators. Ayub Khan did it, Ziaul Haq did it, and then Musharraf did it. All three of them were military dictators who overthrew the government. Another country that, for those who are not familiar, another country who's similar, that has a similar kind of system, is Egypt. Egypt has, even if you have an elected democracy, the military is a completely separate thing that has a tremendous amount of power, and they can really kind of bring down, they can take over anytime they want.
That is why I said I'm not going to use the examples, because a lot of them are fake democracies, they're not real democracies. Anyways, let's go. Are Middle Eastern Muslims
Mike
more
Spencer.
Go on.
Are Middle Eastern Muslims more open-minded than South Asian Muslims?
I have no idea.
There is actually... Sorry, Armin?
I don't think we can tell unless there is like a poll or something. I mean, unless you have the data.
Well, the question is problematic itself, right? Because Middle Eastern Muslims include Saudi Muslims, who are Salafi and who are who's extremely, extremely ultra-conservative. And then you also have the Muslims in Lebanon. You also have Muslims in Syria, who are very, very secular, right? They have bars, and they have...
Wait, what did you say? Saudi Arabia and Syria, right? Okay.
Saudi Arabia, like in Lebanon, if you go to Beirut, it's a completely different system.
But he's asking average. He wants to average. I mean, but you're right. You can't mix that together. Yeah,
you can't. Saudi Arabia is a small budget. The largest Arab country is Egypt, and in Egypt, you're going to find very, very fundamentalist Muslims who go into mosques all the time. And you're also going to find people, going out for drinks and partying in clubs and things like that. It's just, even within that country of 80 million people, it is just vastly, vastly different.
Yeah, it's a weird way of grouping people together and comparing them.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a Middle Eastern Muslim. South Asian Muslim, very similar. There's a lot of sort of diversity in it. But one thing I will say is that, South Asian Muslims, like Pakistani and Indian Muslims, are probably have more in common with the Indians of the subcontinent than they do with, say, Arab Muslims. So a lot of this is cultural as well. It's not just a religious aspect.
I want to answer this one.
Yeah, I'll read it out. Why are the Islamist parties so much better organized compared to the secular parties in the Muslim world? Yep, great question.
Well, because I think Islam is a much more powerful and useful meme. It's so effective at organizing and mobilizing and brainwashing people. Like, if you want to mobilize people and brainwash them, imagine if you had to work with building your own dogma or cult, or somebody coming up with a franchise that, listen, this has been a tried and tested model that has worked many, many times. You get the highest return on your investment, and it stands the test of time. This is like the Darwinism for the memes, right? And Islam and Christianity are very, very powerful memes that they became world religions, because they have the narratives, the stories that would be, the emotional appeal that makes them so useful and so powerful. There's, for example, when in Shia Islam, for example, it just works so well. The stories that you could use and the narratives that you could use when you're the underdog and you need to make people feel, give them the narratives that they need to feel like they're fighting against a powerful enemy that needs to be crushed. They have like the Hussein and Karbala, and when they're in power, they also have the narratives, to be on the side of the army of the Mahdi. Like, it's just all there. Like, you don't have to, it's basically a build it yourself, build it at home dogma approach that you just take and you just apply it and it just works, right? It's kind of like the difference between trying to open your own restaurant and try to figure out everything from the beginning, and you don't know how to do it, and you're reading books and like watching YouTube videos online, and and or just opening a McDonald's franchise, and they just give you everything and just tell you this is exactly how you do things, and you don't need to advertise because you have all the branding set up for you and people recognize you. It's all just there, and you just need to change your colors, and people will like, oh yeah, I know what this is, and you just fall in line. That's why it's so effective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that, whenever you have something powerful like a religion, especially like the Islamic religion, you are going to be able to organize people along it, because all the other things you have are too factioned, but this is a common denominator for everybody. Waris Rafiq is saying, why don't you guys ever talk about completely secular Muslim majority countries like Bosnia, Albania, Kosovo, Azerbaijan, and Kazakhstan? That's a really good question. I think you're right. So I will tell you that this is something that we haven't done, and we should talk. We should actually do at least an episode on this and have somebody come and speak about it as well. It's interesting. Central Asia is a large sort of Ismaili Muslim population, and they tend to be very, very secular, even though they are religious. They have a certain faith system. So it would be kind of interesting to talk about that as well, and also talk about Bosnia and Albania, and maybe have somebody who can speak about it. If you have any suggestions on who we can bring on to discuss that, because it's one of the places that we're not very familiar with, most Muslims.
But there needs to be a demand for it, for us to make a show of it, about it as well. Like,
well,
I mean, if our audience doesn't,
on the other hand, like for instance, like we have our next guest. We're going to have a specialist. So he's actually a human rights activist and attorney in Washington D.C. who comes from the Uyghur community in China. So we're going to talk about that genocide that's happening there. Now, this is also something a lot of people don't know about, but it's a good way to sort of introduce.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's very important. And by the way, the Uyghur Muslim thing, finally, people are talking about it at a larger scale.
Yeah.
We've been talking about, and people are like, Armin, this is not a competition about who started first. No, this is a fucking competition, you motherfuckers. If anybody wants to take credit for talking about it, like, this should be a competition, okay? If people that have not been speaking about this as long as we have should be called out, and like, what the fuck, where the fuck have you been? Okay, I think like it's okay to turn this into like a dick measuring contest. I don't mind it doesn't matter if it's petty or not, okay? Because this is like, this is something that I wish more people were paying attention to it much earlier. Like, this is, anyways. I'm
looking forward to this episode. So
who are we having?
We're having Nuri Turkel. So it's actually Melissa Chen helped us get in touch with him.
Oh yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, so he's an attorney and he's a human rights activist. He works in Washington D.C. So he is.
But what changed that people are now like? Why is it blowing up now? Why are finally people talking about it? Because I want to see.
I think that there's some videos that came out of them being rounded up that were very, very similar to the kind of things that happened in the Holocaust, and people are realizing
those were there. Those were already there.
But there's one that kind of went viral. The other thing is,
I saw.
I think it was
one that next to the trains that are recent ones, right?
Yeah,
that's the other recent.
Majid Nawaz actually went on hunger strike, and
I know
I know he messaged a lot of people, including, I think he probably messaged you, messaged me as well, to share that he was going on hunger strike to bring attention to the Uyghurs.
But it blew up a little bit before that. Like, I don't know. I think it's that video that you mentioned that went viral.
Yeah.
But the reason why I want to know why it went viral is because this finally got the attention that still doesn't get the attention that it deserves, but it got astronomically more attention in the past month than we were waiting. Like, we were waiting for this for the past like couple of years, right?
Yeah.
But the Yemen situation, I know why the Yemen situation is not getting attention. Okay, because here's the thing, Ali, things get attention only when it makes someone's political agenda work. Okay, so I think the reason why this is now getting some more attention is not because of the Uyghur Muslims who are being persecuted. I think it's because of the anti-China narratives are growing. This is because more people it's in their agenda to be anti-China. So this is a good excuse to be anti-China. The reason why the Yemeni situation is still not getting any attention is because there's no political agenda yet that will serve anyone's interests, because nobody cares about the Yemenis right now, but it needs to serve someone's interests. Right now, the only nobody yet is
Well, it's there was the Uyghur human rights bill in the U.S. was actually passed and signed by Trump, and that
this is an anti-China thing. This is an anti-China thing more than it's a pro-Uyghur Muslim thing.
In the House of Representatives in the U.S., it was passed 413-1. So that's a bit. And then the Senate also passed it recently, and it was sponsored by Marco Rubio, again, Republican, former presidential candidate. So there is but Marco Rubio, to be fair, even though I disagree with him about pretty much anything, has been very, very strong and very vocal about his opposition to the Saudis and what China's doing in terms of their human rights abuses.
Who?
Marco Rubio.
Yeah, okay.
So he's been really good, especially he's spoken up about the Raif Badawi
Bernie
issue.
Sanders was also very consistent on this. Bernie Sanders was the loudest one when it comes to Yemen. Here's another thing. I think, for example, if the same crime was being done by Saudi Arabia, the same people in the United States that are calling out China right now would not have been calling out Saudi Arabia, but the anti-Islam people who are not calling out China right now would have been calling Saudi Arabia right now. It would just switch. Like this is how you know that people don't, like when you see that people call out human rights abuses much in line with who their political enemies are, then to me that suggests that this is not about saving human lives, So if you want to know actually who is fighting for human lives, you have to look at the people who are consistently defending oppression of people, whether or not the people who are being oppressed are in line politically with them or not, and whether or not the people who are doing the oppressing are in line with them politically or ideologically or not.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So here's there was a critique of what I said here. I want to respond to this.
So Narn is saying Armin is wrong. Just because something happened in a certain way in Europe at a certain time doesn't mean that the same will happen in other countries. Also, Europe was not one country, but a set of competing countries.
So two things here, can I respond to them separately? The great thing about the Enlightenment values is that we have a lot more data right now to show how it works and if it works and how it grows. And actually, you could get this book, Enlightenment Now. Goes over the data for you a lot, by Steven Pinker. But
amazing book.
Yes, but another thing is that it's not just Europe. The same ideas when they became popular in Japan. You could compare South Korea with North Korea. You could compare Hong Kong with China. These are ideas that, whether in Europe or outside of Europe, when they become the norm and when they become popular, they just work. It's interesting because actually the people who came up with these ideas, they themselves had a different reason for why these ideas work. They were like, they use the words like gifted to you by nature or by God or that kind of horse crap. But these days we'd have a lot of data to back it up to say that actually they work, and these are and the way that you actually spread them also is consistent with what we are saying. The second part of this, what Narn is saying, he or she is saying, also Europe was not one country but a set of competing countries. I don't know what is that in response to, because we never suggested that Europe is not a country. In fact, we were talking about Muslim countries as well. So we weren't comparing Europe as to one country. We were comparing Europe to many countries. So I don't know what that is in response to. All right, let's go. There was here.
Moritz Kohler, 906.
There we go.
What do you think of the Friday for Future movement? And as far as you know, does it happen in the Muslim world too? The Friday for Future movement, for those who don't know, is on Fridays, students, like school students, get together and demonstrate. They take some time off from school to demonstrate for climate change, and they want to transition to renewable energy from fossil fuels, and just more awareness about climate change. I support it. I fully support it. This is the thing that was started by Greta Thunberg. And yeah, a lot of people have problems with her, whatever it is. Most people don't, because overall, that larger goal of what they're doing, this is the generation that is going to be affected by climate change. And climate change is an emergency. It is going to happen. It's a little harder to appreciate because it's not happening in front of our eyes. But you're already seeing effects of it, and they're taking responsibility. They're standing up and doing it, and I fully support it. Armin, I don't know what your view is.
I mean, well, the second part of the question, does it happen in the Muslim world? It really, again, the Muslim world is like many different countries.
Yeah.
They're not very much the same.
It does happen. I just don't know how.
It doesn't happen in Iran, I think. I'm not sure, but in Iran, the government is treating environmental activists like spies and terrorists. Did you know about that? They're killing them.
Yeah, it's stupid.
I think that they're accusing environmental activists as being actually like Western agents using environmental issues to bring in propaganda and like coming up and spreading corruption. So like there was like this doctor in Iran who was there's this environmental activist in Iran who was trying to like save a species of cheetahs, I think, and he got killed in prison. Like it's insane. It was Iranian Canadian, I think. What is? By the way, Suha is also reminding everybody to like this video and also subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much, Suha. It's very kind of you. Carl saying Karl Marx diagnosed very well what is wrong with capitalism. His cure was wrong. I don't think his diagnosis was right as well. But I mean, I have my problems with capitalism, even though it's the best model we have right now. Okay, well, you're blocked.
I think Narn, I don't know if you emailed us. You said you're still blocked from commenting on the YouTube channel. I don't know why
There's probably a good reason if you're blocked, because I don't block people easily. It's very interesting because a lot of times people say, I mean, you're still on Facebook. You could be on Facebook and comment there. But a lot of times people say like, oh, you just don't like this agreement. That's why you blocked me. And then I go look. And like, yeah, no, it wasn't because you disagreed with us at all. I mean, a lot of people disagree with us, and they never get blocked. It must be something. You must have done something like, I don't know, spamming or something very stupid.
Yeah. So one thing that I think is true of both an Armin, and I should say this to everybody, is that when people talk, there's a lot of people out there who block people on Twitter, who block. The only reason I've ever blocked anybody or muted anybody is if they were spamming things or if they were taking over threads or something like that. But I've never, ever, if you look at my block list on Twitter, I don't have a single person I've blocked. I've had to mute conversations, when people reply all and do that. I don't have a single person that I've ever blocked. Now, if somebody was harassing me or something, I know there's a lot of people do. And I get that, but we never, ever, ever will block you.
Well, I mean, personally, I started blocking people on Twitter at some point because of my notification was getting so noisy with crap, and I tried quieting it down with blocking
spam,
a lot of.
Right? It's like people.
But I mean, it's people that just tagged me in things like constantly, and I was like, every time I went on Twitter, I was like, what the hell am I even looking at, right? So I tried. Mass blocking. Maybe I'll go back and unblock everybody. One day I was just like went crazy with it a bit. Maybe I'll undo that. But
I want to give this example.
I just want to be honest with people that I did do that.
Like the Jaren Jove was on this YouTube channel, and then on our YouTube channel, and he kept on spamming his comment after comment, saying the same thing over and over again. Like, it's doomed, Islamic theocracy is going to take over. And we're
same comment 5 times in a row, and I warned him. And you're like, "What happened to my free speech, you guys? I thought you guys
would have you on the show for 2.5 hours, and now you're because we're blocking on the thing." Anyway,
I think this third guy was on Atheist Republic as well. He comes there and he posted like, I don't know if it's him or not, but he posted 5 times in a row. Why am I blocking secular jihadists? You're afraid of people disagreeing with you. And the same comment 5 times in a row. I can see right now in Atheist Republic why I blocked you on secular jihadists. Okay. Like, you can see there are other people that are disagreeing with me here in the live chat, and none of them are being blocked.
But Narn, if we are mistaken, and if you were blocked by some glitch or something like that, reach out to us, secularjihadists@gmail.com, and let us know, and then we'll see what we can do, or become a patron. If you're a patron, you automatically become unblocked unless you do the same thing. Jendubi Noor is asking, what is your opinion on anarchism?
Right. So here's my problem. This definition keeps dancing around every time I criticize it. It just jumps all over the place, right? Somebody comes and tells me this is what anarchism is, and they're like, okay, this is why I don't like it. And then I talk to the next anarchist, they're like, that's not anarchism. Why don't you go educate yourself? I'm like, okay, you tell me what anarchism is. I'm like, okay, this is what anarchism is. Like, okay, this is why I don't like anarchism. And then the next anarchist comes out like, no, who told you that? Are you serious? Go read this. This is anarchism, right? So it really depends. So far, every definition of anarchism I didn't like, but the reason why I don't like them, it depends on what you mean by anarchism. It used to mean, okay, what do you think, Ali?
Well, my view of, when I think of anarchism, I think of this whole, you want to abolish government, you want to have sort of...
Not anymore! That's what I thought! Not anymore, apparently!
Well, a society based on public trust, a society based on, say, a community-based law enforcement. There's an honor system, and, there's that whole idea. And I don't know, like there's a abolition of government, then they usually hate people who want less government.
So I think they realize how...
with like people who are totalitarian, like a lot of the anarchists, they seem to speak very in favor of these communism and all these sort of communist states and everything that do have totalitarian, authoritarian systems.
No. Those are the communists. The anarcho-communists are different from the tankies. Okay, so you need to know your version of communists. But here's what you have anarcho-capitalists and you have the anarcho-communists. But they used to say that they don't want government. I think they finally got the memo on how ridiculous that is. So it's now it means something else. So now apparently it's against hierarchy, and then they realize how ridiculous. Like you could have, they're like, there's a difference between government and a state. Okay, we're just against hierarchy. We think there shouldn't be any hierarchy. And then they realize that
what kind of hierarchy? There's so many different kinds of hierarchy.
Okay, but then they realize that's also ridiculous. So then they are saying now, we're against unjustified hierarchy. I'm like, well, so is everyone else. Like, what the... so is everyone else. Like, well, okay, so how...
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so that's okay, but that's
these things. I mean, they're kind of fun and they're kind of cool to talk about when you're in college, late night. When you're really supposed to be studying for an exam, but you can't because your brain's so turned on. You're talking about these potential ideas and how the world can be. But then you grow up and then you end up getting a job. And you start like figuring out how to. You work really hard for something and you want to earn your worth, and then you find out that you're not, and somebody else is getting it, and then you feel that it's unfair and it's unjust, and then you realize. It's just one of those things. You'll grow out of it if you're an anarchist.
No, they won't, but it's fine.
Well, there are some really, really old people who are anarchists.
I want to answer this one.
Yeah. Do you guys think officers involved in George Floyd death will get a fair trial? Is that even possible at this point?
So I think not, but that's not because of racism. The way that the laws are in the United States, the cops get away with a lot of crap, whether or not the victim was black or white.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think the way it's really hard in the United States to hold the cops accountable for what they do. But that is true whether or not the victim of the police brutality was black or white.
Right. And I completely agree with you. The biggest problem is the accountability. And I want to answer this too. And I want to say something really quickly. For this, when it comes to officers getting away with it, it has a lot to do with qualified immunity. If you don't know about that, look it up. I'm not going to go into the details. I think a lot of people know about what qualified immunity is, but officers do have an additional level of immunity where they can get away with some particularly horrendous things that the rest of us can't get away with. And a lot of these protests that have happened, two big examples when Trayvon Martin was killed and that wasn't a police shooting, but he was killed by George Zimmerman. The protests that came out of it happened after George Zimmerman was acquitted. Right, the protests after the Rodney King beating happened a year after the beating of Rodney King. It happened when the 4 officers involved in it were acquitted. So the outrage against a lot of this isn't really about the police, necessarily killing people when they need to, when they feel like they have to, whatever it is, that according to their judgment, even though a lot of times it's terrible, obviously, like we saw with George Floyd. But the problem is when they get away with it. That's where a lot of at least a reasonable, majority of protesters are coming from, and the ones that I agree with at least. Next, disidentity. Disidentity is saying any personal book recommendations on comparative religions and history of religions.
Under the Shadow of the Sword. Is that the name?
That's it. That's what I was going to say. In the Shadow of the Sword.
In the Shadow
Tom
of the Sword. Oh my God, I fell in love with that book so much.
It is so good.
Yeah,
it's so good, and it'll kind of it is like, I think, the Sapiens of comparative religion books, right? It'll tell you it'll give you context on how Islam came out of how it arose, how it was born, its association with the plague that was going around, and the plague that was actually bringing down two empires at the same time, and how it rose from the ashes of it. It's actually absolutely fascinating, and you'll look at everything in a way that you didn't look at it before. And one of my favorite episodes that we've done here on Secular Jihadists is Tom Holland, the author of In the Shadow of the Sword. So do look that up. Just look up Secular Jihadist Tom Holland. You're gonna love it.
I think we already responded to this. We addressed this.
So they didn't like Jaron Jove. He thinks a modern Hindutva follows Ambedkar. Yeah, so yeah, this is, and you're right about this. We didn't push back on it. We talked about this earlier. And yeah. Narn is saying Ambedkar played a major role in the creation of the Indian constitution. He wrote polemics against Hinduism and Islam. Yeah. I don't know that much about him, aside from the fact that he did have a conscience that went against the mainstream thinking at the time, when he was fighting for the rights of the Dalits and the untouchables. And so I think it's very, very different, Ambedkar. Like when you read about him, it's very different than what the Hindutva nationalists are trying to do right now. So I think Jaron Jove was completely wrong about that. And by the way, a lot of people wrote to me and told me that he was completely wrong about it too. And I'm glad we did sort of push back and say, no, it was Savarkar. But,
Okay, can I tell you something else about that episode? So because of the COVID stuff, we lost a whole bunch of our patrons, and we couldn't hire somebody to do our episodes. So we were a little bit behind on releasing our episodes, so Jaren thought that we are not releasing his episode because we are embarrassed at how great he destroyed us, and he thinks like we're so embarrassed that we were not publishing that video. He was going around and crying about it, like, oh my God, these guys are so dishonest. I defeated them and they never released up. What?
Was he?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. So he was doing that. He was going around and demanding that we release it. What are we afraid of? You guys are afraid to look so bad because apparently he thinks he did so well. And we didn't respond to him because we were just like, he's just being an idiot, and we were going to release the episode anyways once we finally managed to get the workload done. By the way, guys, thank you for being a patron so that we could actually hire editors and social media people so we can actually produce more content. So thank you for that. But then we released it, and he ended up looking ridiculous. Like he thought once we released it, people would realize how great he is and how stupid we are. And it was the complete opposite. So yeah.
In any case, so GVA, you guys did a good job pushing back on his claims with first principles alone. Right. Yeah, I think I actually think that was a really good episode. It's one of the ones that I did go back and listen to. I don't always get a chance to go back and listen to them, but I did hear from I heard from a lot of journalists, Indian journalists, who really liked it, who liked the episode, especially the conversation that we had about the CAA and NRC, because there are a lot of myths and confusion about it. And that's a testament to actually the Modi government, who did it very, very cleverly, who brought this sort of bigoted legislation out and did it in combination. So the individual parts of it can't be seen as bigoted, but when you put it together, it's clear. And I think that we drove that point home really, really well when we pushed back against him. But yeah, so but there were things that we missed.
This one is
for Ali. You should learn to say "not so good Germany." Say it quickly and we'll understand. Not so, instead of
so that we don't have to say it, so that YouTube doesn't punish us. YouTube does punish. Like I'm not.
Armin, I do not see it that way. I do not see it that way.
Okay, whatever.
Not see it that way. All right.
Um.
Again, more Ambedkar. GBA
yeah.
is saying check out his book, The Annihilation of the Curse of Caste.
Right. So again, reminding everybody to make sure they like and share the video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell button. Yes, Soha, hit the bell button. It's very important. Thank you, Soha. You're so kind.
So
yeah, guys. By the way, I don't know if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, why is that? Like, let us know, because it takes you like literally takes you like 1 second to do it. All right, next one.
Okay, excuse my kids crying in the back, but don't worry, they're being taken care of. I'm not neglecting anybody. The Muslim world does not seem to know much about 1001 Arabian Nights collection. Do you think it's a good alternative to the Quran? Okay, you know what? Maybe.
No, I mean, like the 40 thieves and the genie, open sesame. It's like, how are you gonna use that? I mean, anything is better than alternative to the Quran.
This is a good point, though, because if you read Jack and the Beanstalk, you know Jack and the Beanstalk, the story, right? The kid who climbs.
No, I don't know Jack and the Beanstalk. Are you seriously asking me that question?
Yeah, I know, but if that was in the Bible, if I told you that was in the Bible, or the Cry Wolf story, the kid who cried wolf, if that was in the Bible or the Quran, you believe me. You're like, yeah, it probably is, because it's no different than Solomon and the ants and flying up.
Wait, so 1001 Arabian Nights, that would include like the 40 thieves, right? And the genie. And there's so many other, the magic carpet, but how would there needs to be moral lessons from it?
There are. Some of the stories are amazing. Like the Mother Goose fables and all the stuff. I mean, they sometimes have better moral lessons in the Quran. So I do see his point. I don't know if he's being facetious or not, but I do see the point.
Okay, so let me tell you guys, when you say the echo is on me, if you hear my voice echoing, that means the problem is from the other people. Okay. Because whoever is
other people are.
Yeah, because if you're hearing my voice echo, that means the other person, that my audio is going through their speaker to their microphone. So the issue, the person that is having the echo is never the issue. Okay, never. Let's go. Let me see questions. These are comments, not questions. Comments, not questions. Here, Shabam.
All right, so I'm saying, what do you think about people who say the religion, Islam of a community shouldn't be criticized at all in places in India where they're often a target of violence? It's a good question.
Who say that? Community shouldn't be criticized at all in places where they are often what?
Like, for example, if you have ex-Muslim Uyghurs, right, in Xinjiang, where they're rounding up Muslims and putting them in concentration camps, and you're like, well, we want to talk about the problems with Islam. So
I think you should. Okay, but the reason why you should is because a lot of the anti-Muslim bigotry comes from people who see a problem with Islam, and they think that the only way to address them is to be against Muslims. So you have to provide an avenue for people to see that there is a channel for people to see that there is a way for them to address the problems that they have with Islam without being anti-Muslim bigots. So even for the sake of the Muslims who are a minority and being oppressed, even for their sake, you have to provide an alternative to people that are to the people that are using their anti-Islam narratives to be against Muslims.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's exactly what it is. So you should always talk about it. One of the things I noticed is that my followers, a lot of my following has to do with, it's basically leftist liberal people. And they are hearing this whole thing about anti-Islam. They're hearing everybody talking about, that they're very concerned about the oppression of Muslims and the demonization of Muslims that is happening, for example, under the Trump administration. And then they see somebody like me who also opposes the demonization of Muslims happening in the Trump administration, but I'm also very critical of Islam. And they see that both of those things can exist together. So a lot of times, people who do that, people who criticize these communities from within, right, especially like people like us, we give that criticism legitimacy, and we show that it is completely compatible with also defending the rights of Muslims. I mean, we're going to have an episode on the Uyghur genocide where we're not going to talk about theological differences. We're not going to talk about, why we believe differently. We are going to simply talk about this whole thing that there is a Holocaust happening in China right now against Muslims. And we are absolutely opposed to it. And we're on the side of the Uyghurs on this. And it's very important for people to know that we can do a show like this when we can criticize Islam and we have problems with it and we've left it and we despise it in a lot of ways, the ideology, but we will absolutely stand up for the people who do practice it if they're being, just horribly, horribly abused. Okay, so Pi is saying Daniel Haqiqat Jew is hot. Okay, no, that's not the full sentence. He's saying Daniel Haqiqat Jew is hot as a personality with Muslims right now. How about another interview?
Yeah, let's do it. Can you reach out to him?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's bring him on. It'll be fun because I think last time there's a lot of stuff he was saying. He's very good, right? By the way, Armin has done another interview with him. You did that thing with Imam Tawhidi and Haqiqat Jew, right?
Yeah.
In New York. So he's done it. There's quite a long
I'm also reviewing some of his videos on Atheist Republic.
Yeah. One regret I have about that interview is, one thing is that I think, we just kind of let him talk and he said so much crazy shit that I just thought it was a good way to sort of expose what he thought. But there is one thing that when he brings up metaphysics, and this is a pet peeve of mine, because I think the concept of metaphysics is just this catch-all umbrella. It's just bullshit. It's completely, I'd like to talk about that and he used it as anytime, he's got caught and he didn't know what to say. He's like, well, what about the metaphysics of it all? And that's just a complete bullshit excuse. So Mr. Critic is saying,
Marco.
This just Marco. In. So, huh?
His name is Marco.
Marco. Okay, so Marco is saying this just in. So I'm not sure if this is true, but Trump said he wants to postpone the November elections because of the coronavirus. Dictatorship in the making or not? What do you think?
Wait, did this actually happen? Can we verify it?
No,
he's saying this just in. So maybe it's happening.
Maybe it's okay. I'll check, Armin.
No, okay, no. He's saying like as if this was the news. I don't think that would ever happen. Because that's why I'm being skeptical. No, I think he's just like acting like as if it was in. What would we respond? But I don't think that will ever happen.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's going to happen. If Trump says that, it's still not going to happen. Yeah. If he's going to postpone the November elections, it's not going to happen. There's a good reason he wants to postpone the November elections. Is that just forget about the national polls where obviously he's losing, but even state by state polls, his previous demographic.
Marco is saying it was just in 15 minutes ago. So he's saying this is actually just happened as we're live. I don't know if are you guys sure? Like, can you send us a link or something?
Yeah, I'm looking it up. I'll look it up right now. But let's just talk about it. If he's saying that, yeah, he is. So this happened an hour ago.
Wow.
Donald
but
Trump
it won't happen.
2020.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
Imagine if it does happen and people will replay this and be like, look at these idiots. Every time we talk about if something happening in the future, you have to add at the end of it, but anything might happen just so that people can.
Yeah, if it is, then yes, it would be. If they do postpone the November elections because of the coronavirus, it's going to be. He just does not want. There is an alternative. Most people, well, not most, but many people vote early. They vote by mail-in ballots, right? So I think a very, very good chunk of the ballots that come in early. So mail-in voting has been a big deal, and it's been used widely before. It can be used widely now. There will be some people that will go out and they will vote in person. He just doesn't want the elections to happen because right now, virtually everybody and everything is showing him losing. He also can't get a break. There's 3 months. A lot of things can happen. Things can turn around the last week, but he cannot win a news cycle. Right now, he's unable to win a news cycle. Just yesterday, there was an interview. That Russia was paying bounties for American soldiers to the Taliban?
I know. Yeah, I saw that.
Right. So they asked him about it on Axios, right? He was asked about it, and he just said, he's like, I haven't even brought that up with Putin. He never even talked to Putin. Like, Putin is paying money to the Taliban to kill American soldiers. Per soldier is getting bounties. And it was the intelligence. He was briefed on it. Trump was briefed on it. It was on his desk. Everything. He's talked to Putin about 6 or 7 times since March. Even if it's a rumor, even if it's not true, if it's in your intelligence briefing, you have to bring it up with Putin. He wouldn't do it. He's never given the guy a
Okay, but Ali, you're getting into a different question at what Marco was saying. Like, hold on. Can you actually read this tweet when I'll tell off this beeping noise? Hold on.
Okay, so Donald Trump, his tweet that you're talking about, he's saying with universal mail-in voting, not absentee voting, which is good. 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history. It will be a great embarrassment to the USA. Delay the election until people can vote properly, securely, and until people can properly, securely, and safely vote. This is bullshit. I mean, if you look at the whole mail-in voting thing, I'm pretty sure Twitter's going to put a tag on this. Mail-in voting is the evidence of fraud is almost nothing. He is setting it up because if he loses, then he can blame it on mail-in voting. That's what he wants to do. He's going to contest the election, which is actually going to be a pretty big shit show anyway in November when it happens. But yeah, I'd be surprised if he did.
I mean, why do you think he's even said something like this?
Why would he say something like this?
Yeah.
Because he thinks that he's setting it up, the mail-in voting thing or the delay the election thing?
Yeah, I mean, if it can't ever happen, why would you even tweet that?
Because he wants, because then his followers will be like, yeah, delay it, delay it, delay it. And then when it doesn't happen, they'd be like, well, they didn't delay it. It wasn't that. So my voters couldn't come out because of coronavirus, and mail-in voting was a fraud. So this whole election is rigged and I actually won, but they're making it seem like the other people won and this is a conspiracy. So he can say that at the end. That's why he's doing it.
Yeah, so I think he knows that he's losing.
Yeah.
And he's just, okay, so this is my theory, okay? My theory is that he knows that this is not going to happen, okay? It's not about him trying to delay the election. It's the first part of the tweet that he's going to constantly repeat, that this is going to be an inaccurate election. And he's going to say that with the excuse that he's trying to come up with a solution, but he's not looking for a solution. He just wants to keep repeating how inaccurate this is going to be so that when he does lose, he could remind people. He already has repeated like 1 million goddamn times to his followers that I didn't actually lose. This was just the most inaccurate election of all time in history, in the history of the world. Since the beginning of time, there was no election this inaccurate. This is what what I think, yeah.
But it's very important it's the last thing on this. It's very important to understand what's going on here. What's going on right now is that usually people can turn things around the last minute and win, like Trump did in 2016. But it's right now he doesn't have Fox News on his site. Okay, so Fox News did probably the most devastating interview of him that Chris Wallace did like a couple of weeks ago on a Sunday. It was the most devastating. No network has destroyed him.
Yeah, I saw that. Oh my God, that was so bad.
Right. Recently, Fox News cut away.
Bad for Trump.
Cut away from a press briefing from the White House, cut away because they didn't want to show a video that those guys were showing, right, in the briefing. So Fox News has turned against him. He hates that. He's now turning into like fringe things like OANN, like whatever that network is that he talks about that nobody watches. He cannot win a media news cycle. This is a big thing. They're major Republicans. His own senior advisor, Kellyanne Conway, her husband is leading one of the most devastating campaigns against him, right? Her senior advisor's husband at the Lincoln Project, who will be all over this news as well, and they completely destroy him. Midas Touch is another group that's doing it. His fellow Republicans, all the people that he's fired, everybody. It's a very, very bad situation for him. So if he wins again, it will probably be a miracle. And it can happen. Anything can happen.
Yeah, it can happen again. It's just very unlikely. But if he wins, don't be like, "Oh, you guys were wrong." We didn't say it's impossible. We just said it's unlikely. Okay.
Yeah. Look at how unpredictable last 6 months were. Like, who knew everything was happening? So
anything could happen. Yeah, go ahead.
Narn An is saying, for once, Armin is right. A lot of this is about politics. However, just because it's about politics doesn't mean we shouldn't align ourselves towards human rights causes opportunistically.
Okay, yeah, I agree with everything. This is about like focusing on human rights and I don't know, rather than religion. You're attacking people's religion. I don't know. I'm not sure, but it's very interesting to me because I think if Narn is who I think he or she is, he has said the same line for once Armin is right 10 or 20 times. So I don't know if he understands what for once means. But thank you. British Pakistani atheist is saying, here, go on.
Okay, so British Pakistani atheist. Hey, British Pakistani atheist. So this is a
Yay.
perfect time for you. We're getting everybody in the UK. We're getting all our friends in the
Yeah.
UK to come on because usually we do this at night time.
Yes.
And it's 4 in the morning for you guys. So we're
We
so
should
happy.
do more of this. Yes.
Yeah. So he's saying secular justice. Armin, did you become a vegan after your conversation with Alex O'Connor?
No, in fact, I became more confident, not 100% confident, but I realize more why I should not be a vegan, or why I'm not a vegan. In fact, I used to think like, yes, I mean, I don't see the point for being a vegan, but now I'm like, oh, now I have like a manifesto on why not to be a vegan. So
so
after my
ignorance on this, but what was this and who's Alex O'Connor? I actually want to hear this.
Oh, the Cosmic Skeptic. You don't know Alex? Cosmic Skeptic. He's very
Cosmic
good.
Skeptic. That YouTube.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. Yeah. I think I did see an interview of his that he did.
I want to do like a manifesto on why I'm not a vegan. Maybe like at some point, or make a video.
Do you see their point? Do you see the vegans' point?
Yeah, that's why I'm so dangerous, because I see their point, because a lot of the people who are anti-vegan, they don't even understand what the vegans are saying. So none of the arguments against veganism works. I'm the most dangerous thing to veganism because I understand their points, and I'm still against it.
I actually am quite straight. I am not a vegan, and it's one of the things that I openly admit to my hypocrisy. I think that they're right. I think they're right about the factory farming. I think they're right about the horrible way in which we get dairy products and milk.
Yep,
but
they're right about those.
Huh?
They're right about those.
I know. So there's
they have the facts. The most of the facts, they have that right. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about whether or not we should be vegan.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a different, because there's a health issue. I don't know. It's one of those things where we have, our humanity over evolution and over biology, and it's.
I don't know if I want me to respond, because that's like it. Like I have like a list of that was a 2-hour conversation.
I'll watch your conversation with it, but we should.
But that was like I mean I had a debate with Alex, and I think I did very well on that. But it would be even better now if I have a second one. It would be a lot more well thought out than the first one.
Okay, well, we should have an episode on this too, because I mean, with
maybe you should start playing the devil's advocate one time. And you could be the vegan. I mean, no, we should have a vegan on. Let's have a vegan on.
Let's have a Muslim vegan or a secular ex-Muslim vegan on. I think that's a really good idea.
Maybe we can have Alex on.
Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. Let's do that. Can we get him? Do you know him?
Yeah. The only problem is that when we bring Alex on, I have a lot to say to him, and you're not going to let me. You're going to take.
Yeah, well, we already had an episode with. I'm going to have a lot to say too. That's just how it is, Armin. That's when you have
I know.
That's how it happens.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so next question.
Yeah.
MJ, great show with Jaron Jove. You got. Sorry, what?
No, go on. Sorry.
So MJ is saying, great show with Jaron Jove. You guys' response was head on. Just a suggestion: next time, please get someone from India to help you with the facts. Jaron misinterpreted a lot of things and outright lied. And I'm hearing about this, and I think we did push back on a lot of things, like his claims about the CAA and the NRC and the history of the Hindutva movement. Obviously, we don't know everything about it, and he is able to sit down and say all kinds of things, and you can lie about things and potentially get away with it, because that's just not our area of expertise. But we did have an episode with one of my favorite writers, Zubin Madon, where we also talked about the Hindutva nationalism movement. Now, he is from a Zoroastrian and Parsi background. He's also an atheist. He has a problem with the jihadism. He has a problem with the Hindutva thing. But
Ali, we only have 10 minutes, so let's do the rest of them really fast, okay?
So it was actually really good. You should see that episode. Armin, how do you follow so many people on Twitter? Isn't your timeline flooded?
I never check my timeline. I never check my timeline on Twitter. I never check my timeline on Facebook. I never check my timeline, the homepage on YouTube. On Twitter, I only check the mentions. I never go through like the home and just check what's happening. On Facebook also, I check my messenger and my notifications. On YouTube, for example, it always lands me on home, which I don't know why. I always go directly to my subscriptions. So the only reason why I follow people is so that they could message me if they need to. So instead of having my messages open to everybody, I keep following everybody that I think that they might want my messages to be open to them, and that's my way of selecting who can contact me.
How many people do you follow, Armin?
I don't know.
I follow almost 5,000 people, but yeah, so do I. I follow like 3,000 something people.
How many do I follow?
Like 4,994.
Yeah, almost 5,000, but I don't follow them to actually follow what they're tweeting.
Yeah. You don't have a verified account. I thought you did. Do you have a verified? You should be.
No,
of followers.
Yeah, but how do I get verified? Didn't Twitter close that?
Oh, I got verified at the time when you couldn't apply. They just sort of verified me.
Because I mean, I have 51,000 followers and I'm not verified, and this is why Sarah Hayter is not verified either, because she has a lot of followers, but she's not, verified because they just closed that down.
The verified thing is overrated anyway. Yeah, I think there was a time when you could apply for it, but I got verified before that, so I don't know anything about the application process.
Yeah, I don't care.
Anyway, next question. Let's do that. We already did this, Armin.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
So Kieran Evans is saying, have either of you had sex with a demon recently? That's the only people. I'm a demenophile. It's the only people I ever have sex with is demons.
How can you tell if somebody is a demon or not?
Yeah. Do you know where the background of this question, right, Armin?
Yes, I know. I already posted like 4 memes about it on Facebook on Atheist Republic.
The new doctor, like Trump's new favorite doctor.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, demon, aliens, alien DNA for vaccines, and
are you gonna miss this time?
Yeah,
I am. How? Like, I do get sad.
Was it worth? I think 4 years of all the human rights and people, suffering and the damage to the planet. I think, given the entertainment that we got, maybe it was worth the cost. Huh? No,
I am, because I'm thinking, when in history, I mean, this just the story that this guy rejects one of the leading infectious disease specialists in the world, right, Anthony Fauci, and then he gets this other doctor who's coming out and talking about how hydroxychloroquine is the way to go and you don't have to wear a mask. And then it turns out she's talking about being impregnated by demon sperm and the alien.
This is like a 4-year dream. It's like, I think by the end of the 4 years, you're just gonna wake up like, of course that was a dream. None of this could have been real.
It is. It's like a parallel reality. It's like we're living in a or I feel like I got transported into it, and there's a normal world somewhere. I want to recommend something. I want to recommend something to the audience. There's a TV show called The Good Fight, which is really great. The Good Fight, the first episode of the season that they did this year, the 2020 season, is an alternative reality where there's this lawyer. It's about a law firm, and she wakes up and Hillary's president. And it's really funny because like everything is different. She's so happy. They're like, wow, the Trump thing never happened. It was all a bad dream. But then she goes into her office and turns out their client is Harvey Weinstein, and she has to defend him because the Me Too movement never happened. So it's just it's really interesting about all of the good stuff that has come out of the Trump administration thing as well. Disidentity is saying, in addition to GV, okay, how do you deal with, or have you, he's saying, well, okay. How do you deal, or do you even have to deal with FOMO, the fear of missing out? It's the urge constantly being online, not to miss big happenings, etc.
Right. So you replace FOMO with the idea of opportunity cost. Okay. So the way to deal with FOMO, like the fear of missing out, is to know that you are always missing out, and that's a good thing, because every time you're consuming anything, there's an opportunity cost associated with it that you're not consuming something else, right? So you have to actually enjoy missing out on certain content and information, because you realize that by missing out the information, you're consuming more important information. You understand? Like, instead of fearing missing out, you enjoy missing out, because every time there's some information that you didn't consume, you realize you missed it because you were consuming an information that was more important. Because every time you're learning something, or you're educating yourself about anything, it's not just a benefit from something new that you're learning. there's a cost, there's an opportunity cost that every single minute that you're learning something, you're not learning something else. So it's not, you shouldn't just think about the benefits of what you're learning. You should think about, you shouldn't think, is this a good thing to learn right now? You should always be asking yourself, is this the best thing for me to learn right now? Right? And if you look at it that way, you don't fear missing out. You enjoy missing out because you're on an information diet. Okay, you're carefully choosing and selecting how to spend your time on the most important information that you need. You are consciously missing out information on purpose because you are on an information diet.
Yeah. Well, I've had FOMO when it comes to Twitch because I didn't know what Twitch was, and I still don't. So this has obviously never been an issue for me.
Right.
I see people. You see people on Twitter a lot of times. Guys, this is too much for me. I'm going to unplug from Twitter for a week because I need to get mentally healthy. Like, what are you doing on Twitter that you need to get away from it to be mentally healthy? And you go on there, you do your thing, you walk away. I mean, do you have family? Do you have friends? Do you go out anywhere? Do you do physical? Just do things like that. You don't. This is not about that. I absolutely love Twitter. As I get on it from time to time, I'll retweet and see a bunch of shit, and then I'll laugh and I'll have fun with it. Maybe have a few serious interactions, and then you go back to life. That's what you got to do. You don't need to.
No more questions. We're gonna try to go through the questions that we have right now, but don't send us any more questions. Okay. So here's another.
Enjoyed this. I like this.
Yeah.
So this is like, isn't that Disidentity saying? But isn't that the book about Islam? I was asking about comparative religions. Oh, In the Shadow of the Sword.
In the Shadow of the Sword is about Islam, Zoroastrianism, and a bit Christianity and Judaism as well. But Zoroastrianism, there's a heavy focus on Zoroastrianism at the beginning. So it is, when you said comparative religions and we said Under the Shadow of the Sword, we thought about that because it does have comparative religions.
Yes, actually the title of it is different in the US, I think. I think it's called The Fall of Global Empires. I forgot. It was something about the global empires.
Yeah, but it's not just about Islam. There's a whole bunch of religions mixing and dancing with each other in a beautiful, oh my God,
Yeah, in the UK. I forgot where it was.
It's an orgy of religions in history.
Yeah. It actually has a lot about Christianity too, like the history of the Roman Empire and everything. I just highly, highly recommend it. It's just a phenomenal book.
It's not just comparative; it's a dance between them in real history. You know what I mean? So it's comparing them while actually examining the real relationship they had with each other and the politics between them. It doesn't get any better than this. Anyways.
Yeah. So I was saying Ambedkar also has a book, Buddha and his Dhamma. I'll love it if you guys debunk that book if you can. Yeah. Well, let's see.
Maybe.
And then Shubham is saying, I think we should still criticize Islam. That's just an argument someone made against me and I pushed back on him. Yeah, exactly for the reasons that we talked about.
Right.
I agree with you. MJ is saying, Armin and Ali, what are your favorite Iranian movies, which you highly recommend?
Oh my God.
So I have one, and I have to ask you about at least two of them. So for those of you who don't know, Iranian filmmakers are some of the best in the world. Iranian films are some of the absolute best. So I don't know if you guys saw that. Was it Asghar Farhadi? Was that the name of who did A Separation? It's a phenomenal movie.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think it was nominated for a whole bunch of Academy Awards too. Armin, I don't know if you know about this, but there was a story about these two kids, and they don't have enough money for shoes, and their father buys them shoes. So they just use a brother and sister. One of the shoes gets lost, or pairs gets lost. So they share the shoes, and they go barefoot half the day, so their father doesn't find out, and he doesn't get them in trouble. It's just one of the. I remember that movie to this day because it's so amazing. It's just a beautiful, beautiful movie. I can't remember. There's one about.
Is it just movies or TV series are accepted as well?
No. Well, TV series, I guess I don't know too many TV series.
Because I remember as a kid, I loved the TV series about Ali.
Yeah.
Ali, not this Ali, but like Ali ibn Abu Talib. There was a TV series just called Ali, and I really loved that as a kid. Like it was about Muhammad's, son-in-law, and
Yes.
cousin and son and many other things.
The movie I was talking about,
the first Imam of the Shias. But go on.
Yeah, the movie I was talking about is called Children of Heaven. So it says Bacha Hai Asman or something like that.
Oh, is that about the blind ones?
No, it's a brother and sister, and they lose a pair of shoes. It was actually nominated. He got an Oscar nomination for Best Foreign Language Film in 1998. But it just really is just a beautiful movie. And it's written and directed by Majid Majidi.
Yeah, I think I remember there was a movie, something in Iran, something named after the Eye of God or something like that, but I forgot. That was an interesting movie. But this one, the TV series called Ali. You know, there's Muawiyah in there. There was a story of like betrayal and love and sex. Not that much suggested sex, but not the actual sex because it's Iran, obviously.
Flowers opening up.
Yeah. But no, but that was like, for me as a kid, I remember being obsessed with that TV series.
Okay, last question.
Wait, last question? Really? Okay.
How many do you want to do? 2? I've got a little bit of time, so.
Let's do 3 more questions.
Okay, 3. That's a good round number.
It's not a round number.
3 is a round
number. 5 is a round number. But go on.
No, 1, 2, 3, all the whole numbers are round numbers, aren't they? Oh my God, do I not know what round numbers are?
You round it up to either you round it up or round it down to 0s, 5s, and 10s, but I don't know.
Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up with whole numbers.
Yeah.
Oh my God. There you go.
It's okay.
But hey, I'm going to find out what Twitch is now, so it'll be fine. Okay, so Alan Murad, the idea that metaphysics, one of the 3 major branches of philosophy, being BS, is an utterly ignorant statement. Please go to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy or any kind of philosophy thing and give me a definition of metaphysics, because all of them start with, well, we don't really know. It could be this. It could be this. Nobody can define the term. It's just I'm sorry. It's just bullshit. I'm not the first one who said it. There's a lot of other philosophers who said it.
It is bullshit.
Yeah, there's a lot of physics.
It's also a lot of metaphysics. It also involves claims just like this, that you just say it without backing it up with any evidence.
Yeah, nobody can agree on what it is. Like the questioning of, yes, you're right, ontology, epistemology. These are branches of metaphysics. Of course, those are legitimate. All of those things are legitimate. They say the scientific method is a form of metaphysics. I think so. Everything is metaphysics that you like, right? It's just, but there's a whole bunch of bullshit.
If you want to defend metaphysics, you just include the things that you think are good under that umbrella, and you exclude the things that are.
Yeah, exactly. So,
okay,
Shubham, do you think people who hate Trump but don't want to vote for Biden should vote even if they don't like it, just to get Trump out of office?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Listen, you've got 2. When you have a parliamentary system, you can vote for who you like. If you have multiple parties, like you have here in Canada, like you have in other places, vote for whoever you like. Parliamentary democracy, you can vote your conscience. You can do that. But when you have a 2-party system, the way it turns out, inevitably, is that often you have to vote because you're voting against someone as much as you're voting for somebody. So you may not.
I don't understand people who say, like, I'm not going to vote for the lesser of 2 evils. Why the fuck not? It's a lesser evil. Like, what the hell?
You're right. It's a 2-party system. And I happen to, by the way, I love Biden, so I don't think he's a lesser of 2 evils. I actually really like it.
He's asking a question. The people who don't like Biden. Right?
Yes.
You should still vote for Biden because Trump. Obviously.
Yes. And one of the most important polling statistics that you're going to hear this year is that people who in 2016 who hated Hillary and Trump, like, I hate both of them, I don't like either Hillary or Trump, they broke disproportionately for Trump, and they voted for Trump because he was like the new guy, could turn everything around. This year, and this is a huge difference, people who hate Biden and Trump, they're like, I hate both of them, I hate Biden and Trump. They are breaking massively for Biden, including a lot of Trump's old supporters, especially the older senior citizens, old white people. They're breaking for Biden, so that's a big difference. That probably hasn't.
Okay, so before we show the last question, I just want to mention that the reason why you're not seeing super chats on our live stream is because YouTube decided to demonetize completely Secular Jihadists because of an episode that we had on fighting against white supremacy. Okay, so we had an episode against white supremacy, but it had so much discussion with a former white supremacist or white nationalist. I'm sure he wasn't clear on that. I mean, he didn't like white supremacy, saying what more accurate was that he's close to white supremacists,
Yeah,
right?
Leon Korteweg, amazing guy.
We had him on the show to investigate how do people leave that ideology and to try to use it as a way to fight that, and how one person left to tell us what is a good way to fight against these ideas. But it had so many white supremacy, and the keywords and in the title and everything, that YouTube decided that this channel is our channel is a white supremacist channel. And even when we appealed it, YouTube was like, no, you guys are clearly white supremacists. Even though the video that they decided that proves that we're white supremacists was completely designed to fight against white supremacy, which is amazing, okay? But that's why you're not seeing any super chats in the live chat. And that's why wherever you're listening this on Facebook, YouTube, on your favorite podcast app, please consider becoming a patron. Link is in the description. And also do not become a patron and do not support us if you're struggling financially. Sometimes I get messages from people that are saying, oh, times are tough, but they still want to support us and they're going to become a $1 a month, and no, don't do that at all. You can support us by sharing, liking, sharing our video, liking, and subscribing to our channel, YouTube channel. Do not support us at all. Do not even think about it if you're struggling financially. Okay. Anyways,
right.
Did you?
We got demonetized. I did not see that coming. I did not see.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna demonetize it. Okay, let's go. Last question from British Pakistani atheist. This isn't a question, but thank you.
But it's nice.
Heroes. I know nuance doesn't help growth on YouTube, but keep up the great work. Thank you very much.
Here's the question. Thank you. That's very sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. Michelle Abdullah is saying, do you think the surge of conspiracy theorists will have a long-term global impact after COVID-19 is over?
I mean, conspiracy theories have been with us always, and they keep growing when global things happen. When major things happen, it would be surprising for you not to see conspiracy theories. But I don't think there's anything surprising about the surge of conspiracy theories, especially with the COVID stuff. I think I would have been surprised if we had such a major global event happening and there wasn't a surge in conspiracy theories. I would be like, what? That would be my expectation, right? But yeah. I don't know. I don't think it will have a long-term global impact after COVID-19. But I mean, as opposed to what? These conspiracy theories have always had a global impact. Been with us all the time, and they're very damaging, obviously, because they take attention and resources away and eyeballs away from serious solutions, right?
That's right. I actually think that it will have a long-term global impact, but it's just conspiracy theorists in general. And the worst example and one of the most historically tragic examples of this was the case of Andrew Wakefield, and he was the one who published the paper in The Lancet in 1998 showing a connection between vaccines and autism. That paper was retracted. He was discredited. It was completely debunked. Loads of studies came out showing that there's no association between vaccines and autism, yet the damage that he has done lives on. And it affects not only kids who are not being vaccinated because of this paranoia, but also the other kids that have to associate with them and go to school with them. So they can have a lot of real life harm. And this actually goes back full circle to Armin's point about why something like Sufism can be dangerous. Is that even if you have something harmless, like, oh, don't vaccinate your kids, they'll get autism. It sounds so nice, but it's not based on evidence. So even if you take things that seem really nice, but they're bullshit, and you don't have the processes to process that information and to critically debunk it, even harmless beliefs can be dangerous if they're not based on evidence. And this is obviously not a harmless belief. It's very, very dangerous. So last comment, Darko is saying, thanks for doing this at a friendlier time for us EU schmucks. I'm actually off of work today, so I'm on vacation day, so I was able to do this early in the morning.
Yeah, let's do more of this time for our EU followers.
Yeah, we should do that. I think we'll kind of split it half and do it.
Yeah.
But for all of you everywhere especially on the East Coast of the U.S. and North America, we are going to be speaking to Nuri Turkel tomorrow. Well, for me, it would be tomorrow night.
Oh yeah, send me the title and description so I can set it up.
So we'll do that. Now I'll put that up right now. Okay.
I'm gonna go though. I'm gonna do it when I wake up in the morning. But,
yeah, that's fine.
You know, one of these days, I know for a fact that when I do go like this in one of these live streams, this chair is gonna go like down, and I'm gonna flip.
It's gonna be hilarious.
Yeah, but it will happen.
It's so funny about people falling over. I don't know why we find that funny. Every human being, when someone is just doing something like this and then they fall over, it's just so fucking funny.
Yeah.
I don't know why
I can feel it every time I go like this. I get like it's happening, and one of these days it's gonna happen. All right. Okay. All right. Bye, guys.
All right.
Love you, everybody. Not Fought, Alan, Michelle, Marco, British Pakistani atheist, this identity, Shabam, GV, Soha, yay, Soha. Marco also is an admin here. John Mark, I already read that. Did I? I don't know. Soraya,
there's a lot of people today.
Yeah, wow.
People from Pakistan.
Faraz.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people from Pakistan. There's Evans. Anyways, love you guys and talk to you again soon. Bye-bye. Talk to you to patrons. We talk to you tomorrow. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.